This video is brought to you by Rocketman and Rocketman Rewards. Keep watching or check the link in the video description to learn more. Hey everyone, welcome back to RM Transit. In today's video, I actually want to take you back to some massive news which happened right here on RM Transit without me even noticing. Through this huge news, I'll explain how different service patterns on a transit network and different infrastructure can work together or against one another on a regional transportation network. Let's take a look at a very specific example. If you're not already, consider following me on Twitter and Instagram for all of the latest transit news and commentary. This whole story started the better part of a year ago when I interviewed Metrolink CEO Phil Verster on a number of transit-related topics. And during this, he announced something really significant that I honestly did not pay nearly enough attention to: the massive downscaling of the Scarborough Junction grade separation. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. A grade separation? What is Reese's obsession with grade separations? And what does this grade separation have to do with transit in any other city? I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to explain all of these questions. The first thing I need to say is that grade separations broadly exist in a few categories. Often when you see similar obstacles or similar track layout, you'll see similar grade separations, whether you're in the Netherlands, Japan, or New York City on the subway. As you can probably also expect, grade separations, and whether we have them or not, can have huge impacts on the type of transit service we're actually able to run, as well as the quality with which it can actually be delivered. Now, to understand this particular grade separation, you need to understand that it's fundamentally comprised of two key parts. In the east of the city, the Stouffville and Lakeshore East lines run together and then split apart around Scarborough Junction, hence its name. The Lakeshore East line continues over a bridge which passes above Midland Avenue, while the Stouffville line takes a broad northward turn to run right alongside Midland Avenue without any serious protection, before crossing Danforth Avenue and turning slightly to the west to head to Kennedy Station, all roughly parallel to Midland Avenue. Now, with that out of the way, you can see what at least one component of the Scarborough Junction grade separation is: removing the crossing of Danforth Avenue right close to Midland. This is an especially important crossing to remove since it's directly adjacent to an intersection. At the same time, the fact that the train tracks run right next to the sidewalks on Midland Avenue with basically no protection right now, there's not even a fence, is crazy, and that also needs to be fixed because it's really unsafe. But you're probably wondering, what is the other grade separation that's needed? Well, you see, up to this point, the Lakeshore East line and the Stouffville line share a quad-track corridor, or what will in the future be a quad-track corridor once Metrolinx has finished its current expansion plans. As I talked about in my local and express service video up here, there are a lot of ways you can potentially arrange your service over a quad-track corridor. Now, in the long term, it probably makes sense to have the Lakeshore East trains run express once they start sharing a corridor with the Stouffville line. The reason for this is that the Lakeshore East is a longer corridor overall, and so speeding trips on it is more important than on the Stouffville line. In addition, there are some intercity trains which operate on the Lakeshore East corridor, and having them run express would obviously also be advantageous. Now, because of this, it would be natural to place the Stouffville tracks on the outside of the corridor and the Lakeshore East tracks in the center. It not only would make it easier to place stations, but there are some other benefits to this arrangement for express and local tracks that I'll talk about a bit later. Now, you may actually see the issue at this point. This arrangement with the Stouffville tracks straddling the Lakeshore East tracks creates a problem when you get to Scarborough Junction, since the Lakeshore East tracks will be to the north of one of the Stouffville tracks. This arrangement is what led to the suggestion for the second component of the Scarborough Junction grade separation, which would take the eastbound Stouffville line track under the Lakeshore East tracks and then combine it with the other Stouffville line track to continue north under Danforth Avenue. Now, I'll tell you what the big announcement I missed about this is, as well as what its massive impacts are, after a quick message from our sponsor. When you're passionate about transit like me, which if you're watching this channel you probably are, you probably love the convenience and flexibility riding transit gives us. Whether that means being able to catch a frequent bus, passing right outside your front door, or sitting down in a comfy train and getting some work done along the way. But more often than not, you might find yourself commuting from point A to B and getting a little bit bored. The perils of underground transit without cell reception, or just waiting for a train with not much in terms of entertainment. Fret not, this is where today's sponsor Rocketman comes in. The Rocketman team is always dreaming up new and inventive ways to make traveling on transit more exciting, and now they found a solution for transit doldrums in the form of cold, hard cash back. Introducing Rocketman Rewards, the casual way to earn money while taking transit by answering real-time polls with thrilling questions like whether pineapple truly belongs on pizza, it doesn't, or if dogs make better pets than cats. Think of it as an anonymous way to speak your mind while earning money in the process. Check out Rocketman using the link in the description below and start earning cash back on your commute. What I didn't realize immediately after my conversation with Metrolinx's CEO is just how big the change he had mentioned really was. It was also a little bit unclear to me what he was referring to, since he mentioned an innovative approach that would allow the Scarborough Junction grade separation to no longer be needed. What's perhaps more important than the fact that this grade separation is not going to be there is that this completely changes the way trains will run in the entire eastern half of the city, and this kind of change would have similar effects on almost any regional rail network around the world. So learning how it impacts Toronto can really help you see which grade separations your city might actually need. Now, as I mentioned, the solution that obviates the need for the Scarborough Junction grade separation was referred to as innovative, but I'll let you be the judge of whether that's really the case. Looking at the layout of the tracks, you yourself could probably quickly figure out a way that would remove the need for at least half of the Scarborough Junction grade separation, and the complicated part that would take one train track under the rest of them. And that would be to simply put the Stouffville line tracks on the north side of the corridor completely separate from the Lakeshore East tracks. Now, this is sometimes referred to as line running, and the reason for that is that with line running, each line gets its own portion of the corridor. Now, the issue I see here is that the motivation to remove this grade separation largely seems to be motivated by cost. I can't confirm that 100%, but it would be my inkling, especially given the ridiculously high prices we pay for things like grade separations in Toronto, partially because we don't know what kind of trains we're going to be operating, and so we've been choosing these really low grade separations that make them take a ton of time, literally in terms of time, but also in terms of distance, for one train line to pass under another, which of course makes everything more expensive. At the same time, this change in grade separation changes the way not only the eastern end of the regional rail network operates, but the whole regional rail network. And I'm not sure this sort of myopic removal of this single grade separation will actually end up saving money over the whole network itself. Now, to be clear, not every local and express rail corridor on a regional rail network operates in the way I've sort of suggested, with trains going in one direction on one side and trains going in the other direction on the other side, which is known as directional running for much the same reason as the other approaches known as line running. And in fact, the increased isolation provided by the line running approach is similar to some of the benefits I mentioned in my station video up here. Of course, that's because isolating services and making them more metro-like is seen as better operationally. That said, there are a number of issues I see with this approach, and I want to sort of highlight them so you can get a sense for what kind of things you should look at in your own city or in Toronto if you also live here. For one, the infrastructure to the west of Toronto's central station, Union Station, isn't well set up for line running, which means major modifications might be needed there to accommodate for this change elsewhere. And that might mean spending money in one place just to avoid spending it in another, which doesn't save money overall. At the same time, a lot of the people I talk to in the transit industry, as well as myself, still prefer directional running for regional rail, and that's for a number of reasons. For one, with directional running, you get to keep your tracks much more parallel traveling through local stations, which is a big benefit because it means your trains can often travel faster. This isn't as easy to pull off with line running because you need to insert island platforms in the middle of your corridor to serve your local tracks. At the same time, with directional running, you get a major benefit of cross-platform transfers, which I talked about in a video up here, between your express and local services, since trains going in one direction can be on either side of an island platform. Now, this is nice, but it becomes really useful when you think about the regional rail network in a regional context. In Toronto's case, imagine traveling from the Stouffville line and wanting to go to the Lakeshore West line. In the case of having directional running, you could simply make a cross-platform transfer onto the Lakeshore East, which would through run onto the Lakeshore West to do this. With line running, you're going to have to go down some stairs and up some stairs to make that same change. The final big benefit I see in terms of directional running has to do with reliability. Well, in a main station, I think performance is often absolutely key. Out on the network, where we have a little more space to work with and a little more capacity, reliability should probably matter more. And with directional running, you get more reliability than you'll likely get with line running. The reason for this is that if you have an issue with one track, in directional running, your trains can simply divert to the directly adjacent track to continue going in the same direction. With directional running, this becomes really problematic because trains have to cross multiple tracks, including tracks with trains going the opposite direction, to make that change, which means that you may have to shut down one service entirely if you have a problem. Having to cross tracks with trains traveling the opposite direction creates a lot of capacity issues that you don't have with merges in the same direction. You can learn more about this in my video about the Tokyo monorail, which goes into string diagrams, which are something you can use to look at this problem with a bit more insight. At the same time, with directional running, during regular times when you don't have delays, there's no reason you can't still isolate your services, which means you still can have the benefits of line running without some of the drawbacks. In addition, since merging is easier with directional running, there's no reason that during, for example, off-peak periods, you couldn't have some trains shift between local and express tracks. So for example, if you want to have some local commuter services or express commuter services in the early morning on an unusual service pattern, it's much easier to do with directional running than with line running. Now, all of this leads me to say that in Toronto, we need to be much more carefully planning our infrastructure to not limit us and hem us in with our future service operation capabilities. It's entirely possible that the future plans Metrolinx has, which seem to orient around line running, will be successful. But it seems like part of a trend of disintegrated service planning across the network that could really be solved with a service-centric approach. At the same time, I hope this video can make it clear how something as innocuous as a rail underpass can have massive impacts on your entire regional rail network, with potential knock-on effects to things like reliability, service quality, and station design. You need to be thinking about service and infrastructure together, or you won't get either right. Thanks for watching.